Today's video, we'll be taking a second look at my dual Tualatin Pentium 3 build.
We review all technology from games to all PCs, and don't forget the toys. Don't get ancient electronics. We cover it all.
So this build here, I don't know if I'd say it has sentimental value to me, but this computer I actually did several videos of very early in the history of this channel, and I think this build, it might have the most views of any of my computer-related stuff on this channel. I think the video now stands at like 20,000 views. I know some of you big-time YouTube creators, you'll get 20,000 views in like a day, or less than a day. But for my channel, a video that gets 20,000 views in 8 years is a lot. I think when I did my initial video on this machine, it was the first video I ever did, I think, that cracked 1,000, or at least the first computer-related video. When I say that, you may think that's weird, because you're like, well, you only do computer content, and yes, that's always been true, but I also kind of venture into like media. I've done stuff on Laserdisc, and like actually, and this might not be a surprise, it really shouldn't be, but my most viewed videos, like my highest content, the videos that I do that get the most views are on like CRT televisions. So like my PVM videos, the video I did on my Trinitron, my Sony Trinitron, the video I did on the JVC D-Series TV, those actually get far more views than any other video types on my channel. And I get it, because, you know, when you're talking about these CRTs, there's a crossover with like retro console gaming. And like, let's face it, retro console gaming is huge. It's way bigger than computer retro gaming, and computer gaming is like niche compared to console stuff. So I get why those, you know, like, what's the best television for, you know, console video games? Of course that's going to get way more views than any of my other computer stuff. But yeah, this was like the first video I did that got, like, as far as my channel goes, like, did really well for computer related stuff. So it's been a long time. It's been like 8 years or so since we looked at this machine, and I'm actually going to be passing it along. I'm passing it off to a friend. It just doesn't really fill a niche in my collection. So, you know, it's just been sitting there. It's been sitting in storage. So I think I'm going to pass it on to someone that's going to appreciate it more. But before I do that, I wanted us to take one more look at this machine, because, like I said in the past, I did like 3 or 4 videos on this build, and we kind of like pushed it, see as far as we could push it, see how well like we could play some crazy stuff on it, like Crisis and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that for this video. There's no like agenda for this video. We're just going to take an overall look at this machine, and yeah, let's just play some games on it and have some fun. Of course, before that, let's do a recap, and let's re-look over this build. So the first thing is this case. It's the only case I have in my collection that's quite this style. I don't know if this was purposely like a server case or a workstation case. I mean, there's nothing crazy about it, but it is quite a lot like bigger than a regular case. It's not quite as thin. It has this like extra little thing here that's kind of at a diagonal. It's an interesting case. I think it's suitable. I think the case suits this dual CPU build. It just feels right. So overall, yeah, I like this case. So drives, nothing crazy. We've got 2 CD drives. I think, well, that top one is a DVD drive. It has like a weird, interesting, wavy door there. Interesting style. And then the one under that's like a slot drive. I don't know what my thinking was at the time. I just wanted to put like interesting things in here, and like those were the most interesting optical disc drives I had at the time, so I just put them in. I think they should still work. I don't know. I haven't run this machine for a while. I guess we'll find out. And then down there, of course, standard 1.44 megabyte drive and a zip drive. At the time, I was just putting zip drives in. Every single computer I built would get a zip drive, and I still like the zip drives. They're still very useful for transferring files. And then we've got that large power button / power LED button right there. And then I want to specifically take a look over here, because when I did my initial video, this tripped some people up. So I got at least one comment on this, and I got, why the 2 Pentium 3 badges? Why 2 of them? Get it? It's a dual SMP build, dual Tualatin. So that was the point of the 2 badges there. So, and then we got your, standard Windows badging right there. Even though, well, I think I had Windows 98 on here eventually, but then I did upgrade it to XP. I think that's what we're going to put on it today. We're going to put XP on it. But before that, I wanted to do something about the dual Pentium 3 stickers. It's kind of cool, but I want to put on a more elegant solution. And there we go. So I've replaced the 2 Pentium 3 stickers with a single sticker to eliminate any confusion. This is the Intel Inside Dual Pentium 3 Tualatin. So, I don't know, in my opinion it's a little bit more elegant. Maybe you prefer the dual Pentium 3 stickers. Maybe that actually makes sense because there's actually 2 physical CPUs in there, so it made sense. But yeah, I've had this sticker for a while, and I've really wanted to put it on this machine, so I think it's a pretty cool sticker. You can get these stickers from Geekenspiel. I believe he has a site on the interwebs, but you can also get his stickers off eBay. I'm sure if you just typed up Geekenspiel, you'll find his stickers. He has a lot of fun and cool stickers. I like them because I like to add a little bit of flair to my computers with case badges and stickers, but also I'm getting a little old and senile, and I have a lot of computers, as you can see. This isn't even all of them. That's nothing. And sometimes I don't use them for a while, and I forget what's inside. And having a sticker that says, what the graphics card is or what the CPU is, it can be helpful for quick reference. So that's that's a practical reason I actually like the badges and stickers. But alright, moving on. There's really nothing special on the back of this machine, just your average ports and whatnot. So let's open it up and let's take a look inside. So here is the inside of the case. The hard drives have been removed. I'm replacing the hard drive, although I'm going to have to do some fiddling around here with the ID, because I've got one IDE has the 2 CD drives, and then one has the zip drive. So I can put like a hard drive here maybe and put the 2 on there. I don't know, I'll have to mess around with it a little bit of a rat's nest here of wires, as usual with my builds. Here are the 2 1.4 gigahertz Tualatin Pentium 3s with some pretty hefty heat sinks on there. They remind me of like nuclear rods and coolers. I don't know. Those look pretty hefty as far as heat sinks go. This board looks okay. The caps look okay just from a visual inspection. As far as I can see anyways. This is a Tyan board, so it is more of like a server slash workstation board. This wasn't made for gaming. Of course, early on, nothing like games of any sort really didn't support dual CPUs anyways. I mean, I'm sure it's obvious by now this is not like a dual core where you have one CPU with several cores on it. There is actually 2 physical CPUs in this machine. So this is called SMP processing. This is before we had the technology to put like multiple cores on a single CPU. We actually had to use fully separate CPUs. So in this case, 2 Tualatins, which by the way are Pentium 3s that were kind of meant for like server slash workstations as well. They weren't originally meant to be like gaming CPUs or anything like that. So we've got those right there. It's an okay board, nothing crazy, no ISA, just PCI. And then we do have like a universal sort of AGP socket here, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. It's not so much a problem with the AGP port here, but the chipset, it's a VIA chipset, and it has some issues with certain cards, so we'll take a look at that in a moment. But yeah, that's the board. It's still looking pretty decent after all these years. So I guess right now sound card. Again, if you want to get more in depth with this build, you can go back and at least try to watch my old videos from like 8 years ago. I go a little bit more into this, but right here Right here, all we have, it's a standard Sound Blaster Live. Nothing crazy. Still a good card. Supports EAX. A lot of games support EAX. So really great card for Windows 98 and even like, I would say even early XP and stuff like that. So it even actually also does pretty decent in DOS as well, the Sound Blaster Live card. So, and then right here, that's just a standard USB card for some extra USB ports. Nothing crazy. I won't go into too much detail on the Tualatin Pentium 3s. These came out after the Coppermine Pentium 3s. And whereas the Coppermines topped out at speeds of about 1.13 gigahertz, the Tualatin Core Pentium 3s went up all the way to 1.4 gigahertz, and that's what we have here. They also supported double the L2 cache, whereas the Coppermines, it was 256. Some of, but not all Tualatin chips had 512 L2 cache on board, like these two guys right here. Also take note that because a motherboard supports a Coppermine Pentium 3, that doesn't mean it supports a Tualatin Pentium 3. Only certain motherboards supported the CPUs, such as this board here. They also, in benchmarks, tended to be faster than the early Willamette Pentium 4, so they were quite impressive CPUs. But again, they were mostly meant for like servers and workstations, and they weren't necessarily meant as gaming CPUs. So let's talk about the video card in this machine, because the situation is quite interesting. Because it has that kind of AGP, I think it's called an AGP Pro or AGP Universal slot, it can accept a wide range of AGP cards. Unfortunately, because of the chipset, though, it really can't. So what we have here, this is a GeForce 7800. This is pretty much the one of the fastest, if not the fastest, AGP card released from NVIDIA. Unfortunately, it's not native AGP. Now, when we get to this transitional stage, when we are going from AGP to PCIe, there was a period of time where they were making PCIe cards, and then they were using something called a bridge chip to kind of translate it to AGP. And generally, this worked fine. Most computers and chipsets had no problem with it. Unfortunately, with this motherboard, there are issues when you use any card that has a bridge chip. And when you're running a card on the machine with the bridge chip, it looks like this. And this is specifically the GeForce 7800. Now, it's actually even worse when you go a little bit later. I thought maybe we could go to the ATI side of things and it will be a little bit better. I forget the exact model of this card, but it's one of the later Radeon cards that is AGP. If you can see here, that is our bridge chip to translate the PCIe to AGP. And these later cards actually even have worse results than the GeForce. You either get just a black screen, or like the Windows will just continuously reboot itself. You can't even get into a game or a benchmark to even test it. You won't even get garbled graphics. You get nothing. So yeah, this machine does have a problem with these AGP cards that use the bridge chip right here. I don't think on this 7800 the bridge chip isn't so evident. I think it might be under that heatsink, I think. I'm not sure, but this is not a native AGP card, I can tell you that. So if we can't use any AGP cards that use a bridge chip on it, what can we use? Well, what is the fastest native AGP card? Well, as far as my research tells me, on the on the ATI side and overall, the fastest native AGP card would probably be the X850 XT. This is the regular X850 XT. There's a Platinum Edition that's even faster. This should be the fastest native AGP card overall. Unfortunately, this card right here is fried. It does not work. The GPU is just completely fried and dead on it. These used to be fairly available, like $15 available. The AGP version of these cards now goes well into the over $100. So I do not have a working Radeon X850 XT. Though I do have the GeForce, the fastest GeForce native AGP card, and that would be the GeForce 6800 Ultra, and that's this guy right here. It has two Molex connectors. I know there's been a little back and forth in the past if the GeForce 6 or the X850 XT cards are more powerful, but from doing research and watching some videos, especially with later drivers, it does appear that the ATI card is overall the faster card, though the 6800 Ultra is still no slouch. Now, if you're looking for a native 6800 Ultra, you have to be careful because there are actually 6800 Ultra AGP cards that are not native AGP. I don't think, obviously this one isn't going to have a bridge chip on it because it is native AGP, but I think it's the same. I think even the ones that aren't native ones that use a bridge chip, you can't see the bridge chip, it's not obvious, or it's implemented in some other way, but the only really for sure way to, as far as I know, is you have to see the BIOS. So I was really picky about that. We'll take a look when we get in now. I'll show you some of the BIOS information on this card so you know what to look for. But yeah, if you're looking for a 6800 Ultra native AGP, just be careful. It's got to be specific. You can't just grab any 6800 AGP. You've got to check it out, and you've got to check the BIOS and make sure it's a native card. So yeah, this is the fastest native AGP card I have, and I did put this in this machine prior. I think the last video I did on this machine, this was the card I had in there. I had some weird results. It actually seemed a little slower to me than the previous 6800 OC I had in there, which is a little weird because this should be clocked faster. But I don't know. That was in Crisis. We're going to install this and we're just going to play a couple games, and we'll see if my opinion's changed, or if maybe that was a fluke last time. We'll see how well it performs with this guy. Now, I also want to remind everyone that I have done several videos of this machine in the past. Of course, they're pretty old videos. They're from like 8 years ago. We're using like free Movie Maker, I think, to make those videos. And the camera isn't the best, but I would definitely recommend you guys go back and actually watch those older videos if you're curious about this machine. They go over it a good bit better than this video does, and they give some context. So again, check them out. I'll leave a link down in the description to those videos. So, unfortunately, retro computers doing what retro computers do, I did run into a few unfortunate snags in this process that I'll fully admit took some of the wind out of my sails for doing this video. Originally, I wanted to do a lot more with this video and put a little bit more effort into it, but these issues kind of took the wind out of my sails. Now, of course, the first issue is an issue I've been having lately with the Move. My capture setup is still down, so I wanted to do direct capture for this, but I couldn't. Still working on that and getting the room straightened up. Now, originally, back in the original videos, I did do this in a way where I think I used the MSI Afterburner, and I took direct screen captures that way in the system itself. Unfortunately, there were some issues with that. The quality is kind of like meh. It did affect my FPS a little bit, where it did take some, power from the system, so I wasn't getting as high of an FPS as I should be getting. And also, a couple games, it just screws with the FPS count, so it's kind of pointless. It won't even display the FPS count correctly if you're also recording video at the same time. So I did download a version of MSI Afterburner. I couldn't find the one that I originally used. Anyways, I didn't like it, so I kind of just fell back with pointing the camera at the screen and taking the image that way. It turned out pretty good. I actually like the result there better than doing the direct capture with MSI Afterburner. And yeah, so that was one issue. The other more unfortunate issue is what I discovered is whether, I guess it's just the age. This machine really has just been sitting in storage for like 5 or 6 years. And apparently the motherboard has degraded since then, and I was having a lot of issues with the more powerful video cards. And what I found out is it just was no longer working with x4 AGP. So I did have to go into the BIOS and set things from x4 to x2, and everything seems to work more or less stable at x2 AGP. But of course, we're not getting the full potential of this machine, this motherboard, this setup, not running at times 4. Admittedly, I don't find it to be a massive difference in numbers. I was comparing it to some of the older stuff that I did at times 4 AGP, and the number difference isn't massive, but it is there, and it was kind of like, I wanted to show this system at its full potential, and I just don't have the will or the money or the time to just have this board recapped at the moment. So, like I said, that did zap away some of my zeal for doing this video. So 2 things to note. The first one is, even when set to AGP times 2 in the BIOS, this card and the other cards I tested will just lock up if you try to do anything that identifies their specs. So running GPU-Z will crash the system, the screen will go dark, and it will not come back. Even going into the NVIDIA, the drivers, like the control panel, and looking for the more detailed stuff, it will lock up. So even at AGP times 2, there's still something goofy going on. And it did do this with like my TI 4, or my GeForce 4. It did that with that as well, so it's not a problem specific to this 6800 Ultra. Nor is it a problem specific to the drivers. I've tried multiple drivers, multiple cards. It has this trouble whenever you go in, even like Everest, it works fine, but when second you go in to look at more details on the card, like GPU speeds and stuff, it will lock up. The second thing I discovered is in the BIOS, there's an option called AGP driving control, and I looked it up that changing this makes the board more tolerable to like speedier cards. So those graphical errors I was having with cards that used a bridge chip, I thought maybe this could fix that issue. So you go in and you're supposed to change it from manual to auto, and there's some different setting, like FF I think is the highest. It's a little bit weird how it does it, but I tried FF, I tried EA, which I think was said to try for NVIDIA cards, and even with messing around with this AGP driving value, it didn't change anything as far as like the graphical issues that would pop up when using cards with bridge chips. So yeah, that was no help, and it didn't seem to fix the issue. Now, the synthetic benchmarks like 3D Mark 2001 SE and 2003, I was able to compare to the older benchmarks I took when this machine was running at times 4 AGP with this same video card. And there isn't a huge difference, maybe 1,000 points or so. In 2001 SE, got an average of about 9,974 marks, and in 2003, I think it was about 9,748. So not a big difference in performance between it running now and when it was running in times 4 mode, but there is a difference. Here we have the benchmark demo for Comanche 4. It's running at 1024 by 768 and got an average about 30 FPS. Return to Castle Wolfenstein at 1024 by 768, 32-bit color, high quality mode, ran great, didn't have any issues. Most of the time it stayed, above 60 FPS, or at least around that kind of FPS. So yeah, this game ran fine. And here we have Command and Conquer Generals, and I'm running this at 800 by 600, high quality. This game did not do very well in the FPS department. It was playable, but a lot of it was very like herky-jerky, and yeah, just even at the lower resolution, it just wasn't a great experience, which, I don't know, it surprised me a little bit. I mean, I know this system was capable of playing Crysis. I mean, yes, on like the lowest settings, and it wasn't the best experience, but it did work. So I'm just surprised that it did so poorly at Command and Conquer Generals. So, yeah, just didn't do very well with this game. And lastly, I wanted to at least throw one game in that actually utilized the 2 processors. So here's Quake 4. I'm running it like 640 by 480, low quality, and still not great. It is running in SMP mode. I've got like the latest patch, and I did put in the command line to initiate SMP modes. At least I think it should be running in SMP mode. And again, not great. At our highs, we might hit 30 well, there we just hit 50 when there's nothing going on. But in most instances, when you've got other like creatures on the screen and stuff, you can see it dips into like 10, 9 FPS. So again, not a great experience. And again, I'm a little surprised. I just expected better. And there we have it. That was my final kind of look back and send off to my dual Tualatin build. Like I said earlier in the video, I would have liked to make the video more of a grandiose send-off. Actually, as I'm wrapping this video up, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get to do all the stuff I wanted to do, but when you're trying to put out a video every 2-3 weeks at the tops, and you've got a whole bunch of other things going on, like setting up this room, which has taken forever, you know, it's hard to fit all that in. So, yeah, I just didn't get to do as much with this machine for my final video with it as I would have wanted to. The issues with the AGP bus, as I said earlier, did kind of take some of the wind out of my sails. I wanted to show you guys this thing at its best, but it's just not running in ×4 mode anymore, which it definitely used to. So that's a new issue that's happened just from this machine's just sitting and degrading over time. So hopefully the new owner can maybe fix that in the future. I don't know. But regardless, it's an interesting machine. I'm glad we got to take another look at it. We will be looking at some similar things in the future. I do have a single Tualatin machine that I'm going to do a video on in the future, and I might feature that 6800 Ultra again in another video. I'm not sure, but if you do want to see this machine at the top of its game, I would definitely suggest you go back and look at some of the older videos I did on this. Yeah, they're like 8 or 7 years old. They're rough, as in all my early stuff is. There's a lot of YouTube videos are that far back, but I think it's worth a look if you're interested more in this specific machine. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.